evening. I'm Charles Duffy, and this is Political Pulse. We're privileged and honored to have on tonight the Governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. Thanks so much for coming in.
Absolutely, Charles. Thanks for having me.
You had a very busy first year, Governor.
Yeah, think?
You came in, you inherited a $1.4 billion deficit. You had to call, or you decided to call a 3-week special session in November to take it on. Big risk because you could have laid a goose egg if things didn't work out. I think Mike Miller called it, this is the boldest move, the boldest action on the part of any governor I've served with, and he served under 6 governors.
Yeah, that was very, that was nice of him to say. That was a long, grueling year. Even when I was running for the office, everybody knew that the state was facing this huge structural deficit. And why is that? Because about 6 years ago, we decided together, Democrats and Republicans that we had elected to go to Annapolis, decided to cut the income tax rate, even for millionaires, which cost us about $1 billion. And we decided to increase our investment in public education by about $1.8 billion. And eventually, Charles, those two lines diverged. So we had to tackle it, because to put it off any further would have just made the hole that much deeper and the fix that much tougher in what were already tough times for virtually every family in Maryland. So we did a number of things all at the same time in order to restore fiscal responsibility to our state. We reduced the rate of spending growth by about $2 billion, depending on how many years you want to go out. And we also passed about $1.4 billion in new revenues. The one that touched everybody, unfortunately, was a 1 penny increase in the sales tax. Maryland had the 42nd lowest sales tax in the nation, and we increased that by 1 penny. We didn't do those things so much to, earn a pat on the back from Senate President Miller or the Washington Post or the Baltimore Sun, though all of those pats on the back are appreciated. We did it so that we could continue investing in the protection of the quality of life that we enjoy as Marylanders. So now we're able to make record investments and pay for them in public education, in school construction, in health care, and in our environment without raiding important things like the Transportation Trust Fund or Program Open Space just to tape together the budget on a year-to-year basis. So it's been a tough year, but we've also accomplished a lot of things that any administration would be proud to claim in an 8-year period.
And I think the Post, who's not always been a friend of yours, Governor, went through and actually gave you their due or gave you your due. Went through a list of the accomplishments: money for the Chesapeake Bay cleanup, health care for an additional 100,000 low-income Marylanders, infusion of $420 million of transportation funds, freezing college tuitions. The Post said, hey, these are big achievements, any one of which might have been seen as an important accomplishment. To have gotten them all in just 11 months on the job is a testament to Mr. O'Malley's tenacity, flexibility, political acumen, and lobbying skills. So again, these are meat and potatoes issues, it seems like. You took a risk to have it, but it seemed like even the Post is saying, hey, good job.
Yeah, even the Post. We, Lieutenant Governor Brown and I were very clear what our priorities were coming into office, and they were to strengthen and grow the ranks of our middle class. Well, how do you do that if that's your top priority? You do it by making investments in public education, public safety, and by expanding opportunity. Opportunity to learn, to earn, to enjoy the health of the people we love as well as the environment we love, to more people rather than fewer. And I'm very fortunate that we've been able to recruit, thanks in part to Lieutenant Governor Brown's expert running of our transition process. We have some really quality people, Charles, now heading up the Department of the Environment, heading up transportation, heading up natural resources, and our health department. And we're making progress again as a people.
And I know that you had a series of very close votes in that special sessions, and any one of those votes could have, appears to me, could have sunk the whole package.
That's right.
And all of the state senators and delegates from Montgomery didn't support this, but a good many supported these close, or voted for you on these close votes. One of these close votes was putting slots to a public referendum in November 2008 to finally get the slots issue behind the state.
Sure. the slots referendum, that this issue we've been debating as a people for 5 or 6 years, the voters will finally have an opportunity to make that decision for themselves. And that is one piece. It was about 25-30% of the fix to this structural deficit, along with the revenue measures and the cuts and reductions in spending. And so that will be before the voters. And I'm confident that when the voters have an opportunity to see that this is one of the most innovative and taxpayer-friendly slots proposals that have been done by any of the 50 states. That's according to Jeffrey Hooker, I believe his name is, was quoted in the Post. He's an expert in watching that industry. I think they will vote for it because it's state controlled, because it limits it to only 5 locations in the state, and because the state's portion is so great compared to what other states have done. I think voters will see that on balance, it is far better to keep those dollars that are currently traveling in the hundreds of millions of dollars every year to West Virginia, to Pennsylvania, to Delaware, to close that loophole and keep those dollars in Maryland.
It's interesting, the Maryland Association of Counties, we had Jim Smith on, the county executive from Baltimore County, also called MACO, Maryland Association of Counties. The Maryland Teachers Union came out for slots.
It is a pretty broad-based coalition. Right. So it's the Chamber of Commerce, it's the teachers, it is AFL-CIO, that is organized labor, it is all of the county executives. I don't know that Maryland Municipal League has taken a position yet, but I can tell you in my informal polling that everyone who's responsible for delivering the local services, in terms of schools, police, or roads, or those other things, knows that we really need this. And that without this, we're going to go back to that sad path we were on before, where we're cutting services.
Right, and the economy right now is not the greatest. We might be in a recession. There's arguments on either side. I heard State Senator Rich Madaleno from right here in District 18 speak, and he said, without the slots revenues, there could be another $1 billion deficit that the state's going to have to deal with. There's going to be it looks like maybe even a sizable deficit with, if slots passes.
Well, we want to be ready to, and we are getting ready to move forward as quickly as we can with implementation at those 5 limited and state-controlled locations. I'm an optimist, Charles. I don't like to think about what we'll have to do if it doesn't pass. I think that we need to focus on moving forward, on maintaining fiscal responsibility so that we can continue to make investments in public education. We've gone 3 years in a row now, approaching our 3rd year of holding college tuition at a 0% increase. We don't print money though, and I don't know where else in these tough times that we would be able to maintain progress if we're not able to secure passage of this limited and state-controlled slots referendum, so that we can keep those hundreds of millions of dollars here in Maryland rather than allowing them to go to build schools and roads in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Delaware.
And I know you don't think it's a perfect solution, but hey, it seems like a decent solution based on that fact.
Yeah, here's my objection in the past. When our predecessor used to talk about slots, it was as if that was the magic silver bullet solution to being fiscally responsible. Meanwhile, nothing was done to reduce the size of government. Every imaginable fee, toll, and college tuition and community college tuition started going through the roof. And we still didn't solve the problem, yet we were told, if only we had slots, we would. The slots proposal was only one part of the fix of fiscal responsibility. It was about 30% of it. It was a big part, mind you, but it was only one part of it. We had a lot of delegates and senators, including many courageous members of the Montgomery County delegation, stepped forward and voted for very unpopular, tough choices that in the short term, none of us particularly like. But in the long term is what's in the best interest of not just ourselves and our neighbors, but of our children and our children's children. And Montgomery County's delegation, I think, also was able to see and actually pressed more than some other jurisdictions, excuse me, for investments in progress. That is to say, in the first 2 years of the Ehrlich administration, only about $20 million was invested in school construction in Montgomery County. In the first 2 years of O'Malley Brown, because of the Montgomery County delegation's push, we were able to secure $98 million for school construction. That's a 450% some improvement in progress and investments in our children's future. And I think that's what this will really, I think that's what this is about, really.
Mhm.
It's not about getting a pat on the back from Moody's and Standards and Poor's for maintaining our AAA bond rating. It's being able to invest in our kids' futures.
You mentioned Montgomery County, and I know you have an affinity for Montgomery County. One reason which is that you were raised in Montgomery County.
That's right, in a little log cabin in Bethesda.
I don't know if there's a plaque up there or not, but there's a lot. Based on the special session, it looks like Montgomery County was able to get some money for things like transportation, and you mentioned school construction. Regarding the transportation, it looked like what it came out of the special session was for Montgomery County $250 million over the next 3 years to study the Purple Line and also the Corridor City Transitway, 2 mass transit projects, one up in the north part of the county.
Right.
And one east-west, going east-west in the county.
Yeah, Montgomery County is, as you know, the largest jurisdiction in the state of Maryland right now. And there were a number of wins that the Montgomery County delegation brought home. And they were needed because for years, at least the last 4 years, we were not making important investments in infrastructure. The insidious thing about not investing in infrastructure is that the general public usually doesn't realize it until it's 4 or 5 years down the road and it's having its impact.
Right,
you know,
a bridge falls down like in Minnesota, or
right. A bridge falls down in Minnesota, and then we ask why we didn't invest the money 10 years ago in the preventive maintenance or in the reconstruction. So, you outlined a couple of the big wins. Where Montgomery County's delegation really came home with big wins out of these first 14 months was in school construction. The largest amount in the last year was $46 million for any jurisdiction, and that was Montgomery County. The next jurisdiction was Prince George's at $41 million. Over a 2-year period, that's $98 million in school construction, which is up from the $20 million in the comparable period of our predecessor. So school construction was a big win. Transportation, a huge win, and we need to make these investments. Not only the $100 million in advancing the Purple Line, but also the $80 million in the Corridor City Transitway, and also the $50 million in dedicated funding for the metro system. Not to mention some better investments in MARC and the huge investment over these next few years of the ICC, coming on the heels of the completion of the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. So transportation was a big priority for the Montgomery County delegation. They are delivering in a big way because of the tough votes they cast. You know, none of us want to pay the additional 1 penny on the sales tax, but a portion of that penny is what's going into the Transportation Trust Fund that allows us to invest in mass transit and the other solutions to the traffic congestion, which robs us of our quality of life, especially in the Washington metro area.
We're going to take our break, and we're going to come right back with the Governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. We're back with the Governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley, and you talked about you have these, you have the revenue structure in place somewhat. You cut costs. You pass a lot of different things. Where do you go from here, Governor?
Well, we go to progress. We make constant progress, constantly on all fronts. I mean, our goal.
What issues are you going to what issues are you going to focus on?
Well, they all tend to merge together. Let me share with you, Charles, how I try to get the cabinet members to work together. We have created a performance measurement system in state government called State Stat, where instead of just measuring the inputs of government, which is what we've been talking about for the first part of this show, namely, the revenues and the budget line items and how much we're investing, we measure the outputs of government. In other words, what is government delivering on the things that people expect us to make progress on? Right. So the 3 sort of strategies that incorporate so many departments into making progress for Maryland are these. One is workforce creation. The second is security integration, and the third is sustainability. That is to say, finding better ways in terms of the land, the air, the water, the energy that we use to make a more sustainable future for our kids here. Forbes magazine, going back again, has said that Maryland has one of the top 3 most highly skilled workforces in the United States of America. It is not coincidental, but causal, that we should also have Education Week saying we have one of the top 3 public school systems in America. Our competitive economic advantage in this new global economy throughout this Chesapeake Crescent that stretches from Northern Virginia up through Washington and into Baltimore, is the quality of our workforce. So we are going to continue to make investments in improving the quality of our workforce. That's why, continuing to make college education more affordable to more people, making historic investments in community college, and also restoring, or maybe creating for the first time really, a robust career and technical education track in all of Maryland's high schools. These are things that are our future. This is what makes us strong as a people. On security integration, as we approach the mid-year mark, we are now at a 22% reduction in homicides in the state, that most notorious of all violent crime indicators. In Prince George's County, we are down 15% as of this show. We are down 36% in Baltimore City. Why is that? Because we're doing a better job of sharing information, using parole and probation, state agencies as crime prevention tools rather than allowing them to sit back and leave it all to local governments to deal with.
Well, isn't a good percentage of the state budget made up of education, health care, traffic,
Right.
and it's just a matter of keeping, doing a better job with those issues?
That's right. 80%, everybody knows what their mayor or their county executive does. Most of us understand what the president does or does not do. At the level of our state, it's harder for people to keep track of where their state dollars go. We're one of the few states, for example, that actually uses our state revenues to invest in school construction. Most states in America don't do that, but 80% of your state tax dollar goes to education in some way, shape, or form, public safety, or health and healthcare and public health. We're also, we have expansions of healthcare for years. We saw the ranks of our uninsured in Maryland going up, and to no surprise, our insurance rates would go up and up because there were more uninsured to cover on the back end when they go to the emergency room. We are now moving forward with plans to expand to 100,000 Marylanders health insurance for the first time, health coverage for the first time, including an incentive for small businesses of less than 9 employees to join the ranks of the insured. So these are exciting things on our future. We also have BaseStat, where we are measuring the outputs in terms of the mitigation of the damage that we humans are doing by our activity on land to the quality of the water in the bay. And we will soon be able to unveil for the first time the green infrastructure of our state. What does that mean? We always talk about open space. It's good to purchase open space. Well, guess what? It's best to purchase it if it's contiguous to the water, to create buffer zones and contiguous agricultural tracts. So we're going to be unveiling that for the first time, and I think it'll be a tremendous tool for us moving forward.
I want to shift gears a little bit, and you're a student of American history, you're a student of Irish history. I saw a quote one time where I think you said that every book on Irish history at the Rockville Library you checked out when you were a youngster.
That's true. My name's there.
I read a
wherever
speech,
it is now.
I read a speech that you gave, and you were talking somewhat about Irish history, and you referenced the Irish Brigade, which was part of the Union forces in the Civil War. They fought at Gettysburg, Chancellorsville, and I guess they lost 540 soldiers. The Irish Brigade did at the famous charge on Bloody Lane at Antietam. And in your speech, you said, who were these men who came from villages in Ireland and traveled thousands of miles to work in the mines in America? Men that hadn't traveled more than 2 miles in their lives before now followed urgent history-making work over hundreds and thousands of miles. And then it seemed like you answered your question. They came here even before the potato died and the famine was turned into a genocidal weapon, long before the Troubles, to build a new life for their families. And it just kind of struck me that, I don't know, does all this history and this thought of people rising themselves up and taking a chance, does it kind of work into what you're doing as the governor?
I think especially in the tough days, what sustains me, Charles, is an awareness of history and an awareness that our time and the march of human progress is but a blink, and that other people in times that have been equally tough and in many cases tougher were able to summon forth that obligation they felt to do work in their own times to honor their grandparents and also to make their children's lives better. I once tried to do take a whack at doing a short little book, if you will, for about my 7 years serving as mayor of Baltimore. And I began each little chapter with recounting a particular part of Baltimore history, whether it's the Great Fire or the bombardment or other things. And a friend of mine read it and said, this book is like moving in a very, very fast way down a road without a clutch. And I said, well, in a way, that's what my life is like. We're always shifting without a clutch. And I said, but then again, there also is a continuity with history, a sense that we're building on what other people have done for us, and we have an obligation in our own time to make this world better for our kids.
But you always talk about serving, and I read this quote about, it seems like you're interested in getting people to raise up, but it seems like some of these issues that you work on, like healthcare to more people, education, that somehow kind of works into that. And I know you went to Gonzaga High School, which is you commuted from Montgomery County down to Washington D.C. and there was
Gonzaga, best 4 years of my education.
I'll tell you. But there was I saw there was a Father McKenna. You called him a modern day saint, who ran a mission and a soup kitchen for homeless men. And this father or this priest seemed to have a big impact on you. He tried to get them into jobs and face up to their addiction. It made an indelible impression on many of us, and it certainly had an impression on me every day I walked by that mission and then went to class.
Yeah, Gonzaga was a terrific time for me and kind of a crystallizing moment for me as well. I went to Our Lady of Lourdes School in Bethesda, and certainly the Sisters of St. Francis taught us the corporal works of mercy, the spiritual works of mercy. But at Gonzaga, it very much became alive in that urban setting. You realized that one person could make a difference and that each of us must try. And I guess, the continuity, the big ideas, even in a state that's as diverse as ours, Charles, there are certain core beliefs that I think unite all of us and really cut across party and generational lines. And they're beliefs that were exemplified by Father McKenna. There are beliefs that are exemplified by those that do work in addiction and addiction counseling, and those that overcome their own addictions. And as best I've been able to figure it out and boil it down, those big beliefs are these: a belief in the dignity of every individual, a belief in our own responsibility to advance the common good, and an understanding that there is a unity to spirit and matter. In other words, what we do in our own lifetimes does matter, and that each of us must try. And those are the core beliefs that I think make us a great state and will make us an even better state in the future, even in these tough and challenging times.
Mm-hmm. And I know it's June 2008, and it's Father's Day in this month, and your father, Thomas O'Malley, was a civil rights lawyer, kind of a raconteur, storyteller, kind of a bigger than life figure. And often it seems like in public life, when you're talking about an injustice or an abuse of power, you raised your dad, Thomas O'Malley, and he passed away before you took the oath of office. And for example, I guess when you were the mayor of Baltimore, there was an alleged police officer planting drugs on someone, and you were quoted as saying, "Being my father's son, I do get angry at an abuse of power and the injustice of this allegation."
I've forgotten I said that now.
But it seems like you refer to your dad, and sometimes, and always it seems to always be in that context, the abuse of power.
Interesting. Well, as any of us who have gone through that natural and painful evolution of our own lives of losing a parent would know, my dad's become almost more present to me in a different way since he's left than when he was here. We used to think of him as Atticus Finch. He was a solo lawyer, practitioner, and he also raised me with an understanding that it's enough for injustice to prevail or for evil to triumph in this world if good people remain silent. And so I hope I never ever disappoint his soul or his spirit by remaining silent in the face of injustice. He had an impatience and also almost a lack of tolerance for the arena of compromise. And when you hold elective office and are responsible for bringing together a very diverse group of men and women that is the Maryland General Assembly in our state, you do have to find those avenues for compromise. But my father gave me a tremendous gift, and one of them was an instinct for justice and an intolerance for injustice, and I hope I never let him down on those scores.
Mm-hmm. Let's shift gears again. I know that you were a supporter of Hillary Clinton, and a tough race. She came up just a little bit short, but it seems like the Clinton supporters, the Obama supporters are uniting here in Maryland.
We've had a coming together of the Democratic leadership and those that were elected to go to represent us at the convention, the Democratic convention. I have asked, and he has kindly agreed to accept my invitation of being co-chair of our delegation. I've asked Elijah Cummings to co-chair with me our delegation to Denver. We had our first meeting just the other day in Government House, and everybody's very fired up about the fall. You know, the nice thing about this primary, as hard fought as it was, and as committed as both of these candidates were and are to winning, the fact of the matter is, those of us who supported Senator Clinton did so because we believed in her and believed that she was a quality candidate, and she was. Those of us who supported Senator Obama from the beginning did so not because they disliked Senator Clinton, but because they believed the same thing about Senator Obama. And at the end of the day, he got more votes and he got more delegates, and he's going to be our nominee. But I think you're going to see a very energized Democratic Party in Maryland. I think you're going to see Maryland really forging ahead, and all of us embracing Senator Obama's campaign and making it our own and moving forward for a big victory in November and getting our country back on track again.
Okay. We have about 15 seconds left, and I know you have a long way to go in politics. And just look.
Do you? I'm glad you know that, Charles.
Look down the road. Maybe you're sitting there, and I don't know, you're in the front porch with the grandkids, and what do you want people to say about Martin O'Malley?
What I'd like
15 seconds left.
Yeah, 15 seconds. I'd like people to say that that I volunteered to serve a great people, and that while I served them, we made great progress, realizing that we were all in this together, and that we have the power and the ability to make our part of this world a better place.
Governor, it's honor and privilege. Thanks for coming in.
Charles, thank you. Always a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, if it's Tuesday night at 9:30 or Thursday night at 9, it's Political Pulse on Channel 16 TV. I'm Charles Duffy. We'll see you next week.
Mrs. Abruzzo, I'm Ed McMahon, and we're signing up people for...
Yes,
I am. Yeah. Mr. Murphy, Ed McMahon. We're starting up... No.
Dreams really do come true.
Hombre, dinero.
No.
Con cámaras.
Yes, Ed
con
McMahon,
cameras.
see.
Ed McMahon.
Yes, Ed McMahon. We're having our first
Ed
ever...
McMahon.
Yes. Tuesday night at the high school. We're starting up the neighborhood watch in this area, and here's all the information.
Stevie, get down here, please.
No, it's just
5, 6, 7, 8.
No tango de now. Neighborhood watch. We're having this neighborhood watch, the first one. Right. I'll come back.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Start a neighborhood watch. It's just one of the many ways you can help make America stronger. To find out how, call or log on for this free guide.